Welcome back to a best of 3 series of top level StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a Terran versus Zerg, where in game number 1 we find ourselves on Last Fantasy. It's one of the new maps from the Team Liquid map contest. It's the weird one with the 3 spawn locations, and I'm excited to find out exactly what ended up going down between these two players, because first off, in... what is this? Yeah, the bottom left corner? I mean, it's a circular map. I have to redo my entire intros at this rate, if these maps actually do make it onto the map pool. But anyways, playing right here with the Red Terran CVs, we have a previous world champion of StarCraft 2, and he goes by the name of ByuN, one of the all-time greats. His opponent, down in what looks like the bottom right, sending an Overlord in the wrong direction, playing with the blue Zerg drones. We're looking at none other than the #1 player from England, and he goes by the name of Iba. Now, Iba mentioned that this series was a bit of a banger, so I'm excited to find out exactly what ended up going down between these two. I would imagine, though, that across the board, because Iba recommended it to me, that this is going to be a series where Iba is going to look spectacular. At the very least, well, he doesn't send me a whole lot of messages. At the very least, that is the assumption that I will be making here. Now, Last Fantasy is an interesting one, mostly because of the fact that there are 3 spawn locations rather than the conventional 2 or maybe the historical 4. It's just a little different. And obviously, since you don't know where your opponent spawned, well, you have to make some choices right at the very start. And apparently, well, ByuN did not spawn all the way in the top left-hand corner. Now, in case the name Iba does not ring a bell, he's been steadily getting better over the last couple of years, to the point where right now he's actually, well, starting to look... where are you? Ridiculously strong. Are we gonna have... this is Korean laughing right over here. And this is ha 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 in Korean. Top? Yes. Alright. Well, he's already scouted top, ByuN. Apparently ByuN is now going to be scouting top as well, even though he has claimed that he is the one that has spawned at the top of the map. Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Now, if you just want to feel old for just a moment, right? So Iba, like I said, he's been steadily climbing through the ranks to a point where right now he's actually incredibly good. You want to feel old for just a little bit? Iba was born in 2009. Yeah, when Iba, when StarCraft 2 came out, Iba probably just learned how to walk. yeah, that's a little unfortunate. He's currently, I think he just turned 16, so he's actually the record holder for youngest Grandmaster player ever at the age of, I think, 11 and 200 something days? Something along those lines. It's Oda's Wikipedia page if you want to get the exact numbers, but it's getting a little out of hand. All of us are getting old. ByuN obviously has also been around for quite a long time. I think ByuN is probably like 30, maybe 31, maybe even 32 years old at this point in time. So he's competing against somebody who is practically half his age. Yeah. Now they have a little bit of friendly banter, because Iba knows, of course, that Reaper was sent up north. It's the only thing that makes sense. Then ByuN claimed apparently that it wasn't a Reaper opener, but a Marine start. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Most of the Koreans actually speak pretty decent English these days. Used to be a bit uncommon. Now that was an unfortunate loss for ByuN. Losing the Reaper while you're trying to get a creep tumor and then not getting the creep tumor, it does slow you down a bit. Now, of course, one of the nice things right here for Iba is that he did see, I think... yes. Old. Yeah, well, we just discussed this. Yeah. ByuN, by the way, the reason why the Reaper got nerfed twice, ByuN was so good at microing that unit historically that, I mean, you're allowed to make mistakes. Most pro gamers are humans after all. Iba, for example, right now, hitting a supply block, but you don't hear ByuN taunting him over that. Anyway. This should be a really interesting match. Now, like I said, Iba managed to scout his opponent early, so he decided to take his third base away from the Terran. And this is one of the things that can make 4-player maps that we historically had in StarCraft 2 a little difficult to pull off. Because imagine you have a 4-player map but you don't scout your opponent in the first location. You kind of have to start making some gambles. You kind of have to start making, yeah, some calculated decisions, I suppose, and it's just not ideal. So we haven't really seen a lot of 4-player maps ever since we've switched it over to the 12 worker start. So the 12 worker start came at the beginning of Legacy of the Void back in 2015, aka when Iba was 6. Anyway, it's been a while. And because the game ramps up so much quicker than with the 6 worker start, 4-player maps are very difficult to pull off. Especially as Protoss. As Zerg, it's kind of tricky with the expansion layouts, right? But as Protoss, you kind of need to decide where you want to do anything. Protoss doesn't have a lot of early game units in general. I mean, they oftentimes take like a third Nexus off of like 4 units in total. So, you know, like, you need to make those decisions, and when you don't have the perfect information, I mean, you could send a double worker scout, but that is too much of a loss. Long story short, 4-player maps have really fallen out of favor. Now, Cloak Banshees are going in. Good scouting here by Iba. He sees them coming as well from a mile away. Spore Crawler finishing up in the natural. Okay. Let's see how much damage these Banshees can do, though. 3 workers is decent. 4 workers is pretty good. Obviously, it's not cheap to make these Banshees, and you do have to be very careful that you don't just lose them. But it's still nice to have some base defense, and obviously on the back of this, ByuN has been building up his own economy as well. Now, the fact of the matter is that 2-player maps are just the more popular map right now. However, a lot of fans want to see more than 2-player maps. Even though 3-player maps is a little weird. I mean, you could technically play this as a free-for-all. That is not how it's intended. Like a 3-player free-for-all, I mean. This is meant to be a 1v1 map, and even though 3-player maps, yeah, seemingly don't make a lot of sense, I have seen a few designs over the years where it works. And in my very limited, well, experience on Last Fantasy, which is one of the new maps that is currently, well, one of the finalists for the Team Liquid map contest, I have to say, I kind of dig it. So there's these giant speed-up circles all over the center of the map. So even though, I guess, normally on a 3-player map or anything really bigger than a 2-player map, you would maybe run into an issue that the map is too large or it would take too long to get across. Well, the speed circles can very quickly solve that. And just imagine some epic battles taking place right over here, straight in the middle of the game, straight in the middle of the map. Zerglings and Marines are going to be extra speedy running through that area. Now, there are some really good siege tank positions on this map. Let's see if ByuN is already familiar with them. It seems like he is. This is a tricky one to reach. Now, it's not within range right over here of that hatchery, but there's already Ling Bane being set up inside of those speed-up circles. Queens in the front transfusing each other. Lings and Banes coming in from every side. I would love to see maybe a few of them being sent over there as well, but apparently Iba decides to pull the trigger right here, right now. I think there's more than enough for the Zerg to clean all of this up. Yeah, he's gonna continue making Lings for a little while longer, just to stay safe. But across the board, that was an excellent defense by the English Terran. Alrighty, so, 4th Command Center though, coming up here for ByuN. Barracks 6, 7, and 8. +2/+2 has begun as well. Everything here is A-okay for ByuN. I mean, even though these attacks haven't really achieved that much, and even though he's lost a bunch of units, the trades have been still efficient enough. And he is playing a big eco style, and he's thinking, you know what? Let's just keep trading. Let's just keep trading in this exact position. There's only really one spot, I guess, for the 4th hatch. So it has to be all the way up north, and that is exactly where those Banshees are currently at. Queens can't really be occupied in that region right now, so let's see. This should be... Ooh. Well, that should be really good for Iba. What about the Banshees up north, though? Because losing the base, yeah, those Banshees deal quite a bit of damage over time. Losing this base is actually a problem. There are Hydras available right now. The Queens, together with an Overseer, are running up north, but there is no way that they're going to make it. And that suddenly makes this Banshee opener from, well, earlier, much, much better for ByuN. The 4 worker kills were nice. This is the real damage that he's looking for, because this now really slows down the Zerg player so much. When you're playing this style as Zerg, and ByuN obviously knows this as well, when you're playing this style, it pretty much always leads to Banshees. Or Banshees, Lurkers. It leads to Banshees, apparently, too. Well, a Queen also falls at the end. You really do want to make sure that you go up to Lurkers here as the Zerg player. And without Kijkwijzer 7 and 8, it is very difficult for the Zerg player to make that transition. This attack right now looking way better as well for ByuN. A hot pickup was needed, but he manages to evacuate his units on out of there, and life's looking pretty good here for the South Korean Terran, who now has already, well, got his own base. Well, he has... Wait, this is game... Wait, hold up! Hold up right now a second. My counting skills are garbage. Obviously, this over here is the 4th. Then the expansion right over here is the 5th. I was gonna say, something is not entirely in order. Gamers have to get used to it. The pro players have to get used to the new maps. Apparently, the commentators also. Well, we are the dumbest, obviously, of all of those guys. I mean, the players that are good at the game, they play. The players that suck at the game, they cast. Right? Isn't that how it generally goes? I should have been able to count to 5, though, because one hand on the mouse, I can use my other hand for counting my fingers. It would have been okay. So that does mean he can sort of transition into lurkers, but it's not the most comfortable spot. With just 3 bays, though, going into lurkers is pretty much impossible. Matter of fact, drop once more all the way up north. And ByuN is relentless in this type of aggression. Lurker Den is just about to finish up, but it's around the same time that the second starport is beginning. We've got ourselves a fusion core coming up here as well for the Terran. Okay. Yeah. Not the cleanest traits. But I think that ByuN really enjoys this. Now, notice how ByuN is not going into what looks like a ghost academy. No. And once more, this base up north is in a world of trouble. Maybe he can clean it up. Maybe he can come back and finish the job in just a moment. But rather than going into ghosts, which is something that ByuN never really has liked to do that much, but I guess most of the time you're forced into it. Oh, matter of fact, actually ended up going down because of those blockers over there. He's gonna go into the Liberators, which is interesting to me. So, we've seen this a lot from Bunny. Bunny has been going double Siege Tank and then very quick double Starport Liberator production too, rather than go into Ghosts. And it seems that ByuN is trying to take a page out of that same book right now. Yep, Advanced Ballistics coming up. There is going to be a Ghost Academy, so we're not gonna go into the really quick double Siege Tank shenanigans, although we do certainly have that option. He's apparently content with the number of tanks he's got, which is 0. Even though he's got 2 factories, he doesn't really want to take up any supply. Fights over here, though, in the middle of the map do continue. And slowly but surely, ByuN is starting to get close to that hedge. Although now with the lurkers out, it'll be very difficult for the Terran to actually break through all of this. Yeah. And once more, you're so used as a StarCraft player, right, that there is a ton of dead space around the bases. This map has those, well, giant LED screens or whatever they are. I don't really know exactly what they're supposed to be. This entire top, well, basically the entire outside perimeter of the map is entirely inaccessible. Even though there's no Protals in this game, we do have some force field looking things. And I guess lurkers actually can push through these circles reasonably well. Normally being the aggressor is quite tricky. Now ByuN has decided to go for the forward expansion over here, by the way, which is very cheeky. It allows him constant pressure on the Zerg. Eba now starting to strike back. Hydraling Lurker coming in through, and now the circles are indeed helping him out as well, trying to create a sandwich on top of all of those Terran bio units, to the point where ByuN decides to now evacuate the base. Rather than going for the expansion right over here in the middle of the map, I mean, I would love to see a couple Hydras maybe just being a bit of a prick, because these minerals, yeah, are looking very accessible from the back. Suddenly, the Zerg army is here, and it is not going to be easily well, you're not going to be easily taken care of it here. It's difficult for the Terran to break this position. Where's the Libs? We only have 4. I think ByuN got a little carried away. Double factory, not producing out of them. Double starport, not really using them all too much. Now he's desperately going into ghosts. Maybe he also assumed, maybe he also can't count that it was indeed the 4th base all the way up there. Which would make it a very difficult task for the Zerg to make that transition towards the lurker. But since Eba now has the 5th base going up, and well, it's up and running already over at the 12 o'clock. 3rd attempt apparently is indeed going to be the charm. He's got more than enough economy to really continuously play this army. And it very much so has to come down here to ByuN pushing this away. This expansion is now taken care of. 47 SCVs have died. We still have a lot of command centers though, so ByuN can quickly reproduce this army too. Rebuild his economy if he needs to. That is an awful lot of workers, but this is actually still a playable game for the Terran. He's got the Ghosts now. They're a little late, and maybe he regrets making that extra factory and making that extra siege. All of the other units, right? Maybe making the Liberators was a little bit overly greedy. He still has all of the command centers, other than the one over here in the middle. And he still can rebuild the economy and get all of the mules that he, well, already had access to. Fight will continue. This choke point, though, is not the one. No. Super difficult push. Maybe with tanks. Maybe with tanks you could get value out of this. I'm not 100% convinced that pushing in there with just Marine Marauder, Medevac, and then a bunch of Ghosts, I don't think that's the way to do it. Once more, a Zergling run by, and these arrive so quickly because of those speed-up circles. Yeah, you blink twice and they're all the way across the map. Gas is indeed now taken up north. I'm assuming as Zerg, yeah, you take this base next, maybe the one over here. This one is much easier to creep up. Okay. Well, ByuN is going to have to be playing a bit more of a defensive style. Both players, by the way, APM-wise, looking pretty strong. I think ByuN was hoping that he was going to be able to parade push. So his plan was to take this base, and then, well, it's only a very short jump to get on over towards that Zerg. He's been stopped in his tracks. I still don't mind this position, though, for Terran. I know that's really weird to say, because he's lost 52 SCVs, and he's lost so much throughout this game. He's actually fine. The only problem here for ByuN is that he needs to shift gears and play something else entirely. Like, rather than being the hyper-aggressive Terran that he always loves to be, he needs to be playing a much more defensive style now. But he's perfectly capable of that. I've seen him do it many times. And remember, like a year ago, he was playing that mass command center style that was so popular at the time. Everybody was doing it. Maru was doing it. Clem was doing it. Well, Clem actually to a lesser extent. Kira was doing it. Oliveira was a fan of that too, actually, although he started 8-rexing shortly after that once again. Oliveira now sadly retired from StarCraft 2. Haven't seen him play, actually. After he announced his retirement, I haven't actually caught him play a single game. Now, I know that may be obvious, but I have seen many StarCraft 2 players announce their retirement, only for them to continue playing like 3 weeks later. I haven't seen Oliveira come back. Yet. Maybe. Maybe. Alright, here we go. Ooh, EMPs do miss. Not a whole lot of damage done, or maybe they did take a little bit of the energy down on those Vipers. Either way, ByuN is once more going to try and go through this choke point, and I'm just not convinced that it's the best thing to do, because you need only a very small portion of Zerg here to keep that Terran army occupied, and indeed the rest of the swarm can be used to go for that base once again. Yep, ByuN has to retreat. There is an infester. I don't think you really just want to go for a random fungal, but it certainly is a possibility. Yeah, excellent control of the map here by Eva. All jokes aside, he's actually playing a really solid game. It had been a little bit as well since I've last seen him compete. I know he's been playing a lot of Protoss as well, for example, and he's just been memeing around a little bit. But this is certainly better than last time I've seen him play. Now the leftover units over here as well in that choke point, yeah, they're gonna get cleaned up with ease. This is a difficult Zerg army to control too. Like, this is not a cookie cutter Zerg army. It's Hyderling Bane with lurkers, and then also infestors and vipers for support. This is one of those, like, I need a third arm type of unit compositions! Oh my god, ByuN did not realize that there was an infestor hiding underground all this time. Now, ghosts are still pretty good. Good pullback, actually, too, by Eva. I feel like when you see players retreat, maybe this is just me, but I never retreat in any of my games. It's one of my, well, biggest mistakes when I play StarCraft. But when you see players backing up in an engagement that seemingly was really good for them, usually that is the hallmark of somebody who's really strong. You rarely see this from weaker players like myself. We are very pot committed, you know? If this would be a poker game, we want to see what happens with the next card. And generally, you don't want to do that. Bad idea. Once more, we have another run by. Once more, there's a small army at home, but it's enough to at least keep this Terran player busy for the time being. Yeah. Once more, we have an Infestor in the middle of the map. Not enough energy, though, for a fungal just yet. ByuN is now trying to take a base over here, but a pesky Zergling is blocking it. We have an Overlord dropping creep as well in the other location. You gotta pick up, you gotta pick up, you gotta get out of there. Well, with a fungal growth and a parasitic bomb to boot, ByuN has been taken out of this game. It's Iba who obtains the victory in game number 1. Ooh, next up, we find ourselves on a map that I saw listed as one of the finalists, but I haven't actually seen a game on it yet. We find ourselves on Persephone. Now that's a cool word. I like the word Persephone. And I also like the overall map layout. So this is a funky map. If you haven't seen it before, let me try and take you around. Let me give you a little tour of Persephone. So we have a relatively normal starting spot right over here, right? So we have all of those bases, right? The first 4 expansions pretty normal, or the first 4 bases. Pretty standard. There's a tucked away one over here too. Players, however, spawn on the left side of the map. So we have top left going up against bottom left. And the entire right side of the map is a freaking highway. So we have speed circle after speed circle after speed circle with more speed circles over there too and more speed. And then all of it leads to one golden expansion. Now, I like the look of this. Mostly because for probably the majority of the games, and I'm hoping that this is not one of those, but I'm assuming for the majority of the games, this expansion can be ignored. You can very easily play a normal 4 base, 5 base, 6, but you can play a pretty normal type of game. There's also a healing circle over here, apparently, that I missed the first time around. This is a healing shrine that you can park units on, and I believe it actually is blocking any of the flying units, if I recall correctly. Anyways, long story short, I can already imagine one long, drawn-out macro game that will just be an epic battle taking place in speed circles right over here on this expansion at the 3 o'clock. It'd be cool. Because this will ultimately be the final base to mine. It's got some cool stuff. Plus, it's pretty, too. I actually hadn't looked at it yet, like visually in-game. But this is a solid color scheme. Yeah, nice and saturated. Sometimes the maps are making the units a little dull, and the lighting is just a bit boring. Okay. Iba, by the way, putting a GG next to his own hatchery. Alright. You can put stickers down with your drones. It is technically mineral inefficient to be using a worker for that sort of thing. But at least you can get a nice little hallmark. You know, people will recognize it. Now, this is nice. I like the look of this a lot. Plus, I think the word Persephone, or the name Persephone, I've always liked it. You probably would have guessed I would have hated the name. Ooh. ByuN, back to back. Losing it again. That's actually a little sloppy. I thought that ByuN's micro in the previous game was excellent. He was actually doing a really good job. Just not in the early game, not with his very first Reaper, and now apparently we have a little bit of a continuation. APMs in the previous game went all the way up to like 500 on average for Iba, and I think a little less for ByuN. So even though ByuN said he had old hands or whatever, I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be able to continue playing the game for a while longer. I mean, you could take this, by the way, much earlier, right? Like, I was talking about it like this is only something that's relevant in the late game, like this gold base on the right side of the map. Yeah, so we have a slow Zergling checking it out right now. This is where you have the speed up ramp of the highway. Slow Zergling's still pretty quick. Gotta shift gears sometimes. I don't know if Zerglings have a gear selector. Maybe they're fully automatic, who knows? Okay. Very normal openers once more, though, for both players. Nothing out of the ordinary. It's going to be a triple Rex. We've got ourselves triple CC here as well. ByuN is, of course, going to power up a lot of unit production. And these Hellions, ay, ay, ay. These are certainly something you can hold. That looked way better than the previous aggression, although... yeah, it's only 2 workers here in the end, so the crisis management there by Iba is still good enough. And he's immediately going to now retaliate by making way more workers. Because obviously with these Hellions forced to retreat, I mean, we may see a Spore Crawler or two. General timing for it is like right about right now. Between right now and like 10 seconds. You can make some spores. Be safe against Cloak Banshees. I don't think he realizes exactly what it is the Terran's going for. No, he actually saw. Okay, he saw the extra barracks. So he knows exactly that he does not need those spores. So all of this is looking excellent for Iba. When you see the timing of the second Rex like that, you know that it's not going to be a quick starport build, right? Like you're not going to have Cloak Banshees here. The Liberator is not going to be hitting the battlefield any earlier than like maybe 5:30. So you can skip the spores and you can get away with a lot of greed. So again, excellent early game here for Iba. And this time around, look at this. It's a 4th base. Not a 5th, not a 3rd. I can count. Aw, look at the Hellions. Aw, they're hugging. They have literally become one. Oh, never mind. These were joint Hellions there for a little bit. That's cute. Okay. Yeah, but the way that I count sometimes when I cast games of StarCraft 2. Oh, look, they're doing it again. Yeah, you would imagine I dropped out of elementary school or something. I don't know. Believe it or not, guys. I did not drop out of elementary school. Yeah, I learned to even write. Now, admittedly, it's been a while since I've really written anything using a pen. Back in my day, though, they even taught me to write in cursive. I know. That's crazy. Looks like ByuN is ready to go for a bit of a push. Now, obviously, this is a very late 16 Marine drop. If it was a straight 2-1-1 opener, so not the 3rd command center, not the Hellions, and all of that, he would have already hit on the other side of the map more than a minute ago. So this shouldn't really deal any damage. Because it's a very tame attack. Yeah. Gets a couple creep tumors, but that's about it. The players are getting very close to each other, though. With the way that these expansions are laid out. Yeah, they're actually pretty close to one another right now. Like, if we go to the edge of the creep, Terran's right there. It's not that far. I guess the next expansion is going to be the one over here, or maybe the one even in the far bottom right. I don't know if this is the preferred base, if I'm being honest with you. I guess he wants to go Lurkers again. Although we haven't had a Hydra then yet. And we are going to go straight into the Infestation Pit. I think maybe with Lurkers you can hold on to these high grounds quite nicely. If ByuN is going to do similar attacks as he did just now on Last Fantasy, I think it'll be difficult for Iba to defend. I mean, he does have Ling Bane with speed right now done, but this base is already gone. Yeah. Keep in mind, obviously, for all of these players, or for most of the players that I'm casting games of this week, really, they are playing their first matches on these maps. So a lot of it, like for example, ByuN engaging 17 times through that choke point in the previous match. Probably not something he's going to do again. This Zergling run by over here had a lot of promise, but it is going to get cleaned up with relative ease. Good defense by ByuN, who has been microing on the other side at the same time too. Iba not really achieving very much this time around. +2/+2 coming up for the Terran. 4th command center now building. Barracks 6, 7, and 8 have just begun inside of the main base. And they are going to be able to, a little bit of a supply block. They're going to be able to continuously produce Marines and Marauders into Ghosts for the foreseeable future. Okay, Ling Bane slams all of this down, drop in the main base. This main is absolutely massive. The private planes of ByuN had to fly for a little bit longer. Yeah, and this is not nearly as clean. I feel like the previous game, just across the board, was a much better game for Iba. It's not really that every single one of these engagements is a disaster or whatever. It's just that ByuN is gaining way more value. Yeah, if you look at the resources lost, look, we have a 3,000-ish mineral difference already. Okay, that was a little bit better for him than I guess the previous ones, but this is not quite the way you want to trade. Man with gun, pretty good. Barracks 6, 7, and 8 right now getting a tech lab on top of themselves. I would love to see a Ghost Academy here started up for ByuN. Maybe he wants to go into a second starport again, though. Ultra Cavern. I mean, as we've learned over the last few weeks, when you want to make an Ultra Cavern, specifically against Terran, you are asking for a loss. Actually, there's been one game. Remember that that very long Spirit versus Rogue game that I cast? That game had a lot of Ultras, and that was a Zerg win. Although that also was an extremely long game, so, you know. The Ultras weren't really the ones driving it home. There are Marauders now coming out, though, for ByuN. They're not really the preferred weapon of choice against any sort of Ultras, but good splits right here by the Zerg. They can still get the job done. Now with the Widow Mines, though, triggered. I mean, there's yeah, okay, there's still 1 or 2 remaining that hadn't been detonated yet. Oh, he should have left the Zerglings onto those tanks. There's a lot going on here, but every single one of the fights, yep, ByuN is just gaining more and more value. And even though we built an Ultra Cavern, once more, Ultras never did anything. Actually, that's not entirely true now that I'm thinking about it. There was that game where Dark made an Ultralisk Cavern, and then he never made an Ultralisk. But he had Bunny scout that there was an Ultra Cavern, so Bunny reacted as if there would be Ultras. But then he just continued making Lingbane instead. It is truly one of the dumbest ways to play Ultras, by not playing Ultras, but pretending you're gonna be playing Ultras. I mean, jokes aside, obviously Ultras are pretty good. The times I've seen, though, Ultras being most useful is when Zerg is already ahead. So when Zerg is already leading, Ultras seem to be one of those things that can just drive home the victory. Because if Terran does not have a counter, so say they don't have Ghosts, they don't have Liberators, and obviously when you're behind, transitioning into those units is hard. When Terran's behind, Ultras just overwhelm them. And it's the same for, yeah, a couple of other unit choices that Zerg can go for. But Ultras do seem to really be powerful in that regard. However, if the game is an advantage for Terran, like the previous one, and then you go into Ultras, I mean, generally Marine Marauder Medevac is just going to overwhelm you, like we just sort of saw, but Terran should definitely have access to Ghosts. They should definitely have that, either that or triple Siege Tank production or Liberators, right? Like, they will have an answer. And then Ultras usually do very little. And I think when the game is even, I still am not in love with them. They have their time. They have their place. But I think in the majority of the games, Ultras are a very questionable choice. Now we find ourselves on Killer's Smile. No, Killer's Mile. The map maker is called Killer's Smile. The map is called Killer's Mile. Killer's Smile has made a bunch of different maps over the years. And this one is looking like one that is quite passive, although this ramp has actually caused some issues for players. So if you didn't have this ramp over here, or maybe not even these rocks, the amount of expansions you could take, it's just, everything just feels so close by. You can play a very turtly approach, but because of the ramp, you can actually take some early game damage, and there are certainly opportunities for the opponent to, well, go for aggressive timing attacks. Let's see. Third hatchery coming up. A Reaper dancing back and forth. This time the Reaper dance is pretty good. At the very least, we didn't lose it. At this point, the bar is pretty low. ByuN losing it in the previous 2 games. A little bit sloppy. Not the end of the world, though. Third command center coming up inside of the main base. The Supernova Men's Club. All right. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think this is my personal favorite map. I actually am really liking the first map in the series, Last Fantasy. I really don't know if it's a great map. Maybe it's just cool because it's different, but honestly, I think we need more maps that are cool just because they are different. If we have another map pool with mostly the same maps, I think they will grow pretty fast. This one, I don't know. This one just doesn't really excite me. It's by no means bad. I like it certainly better than the maps we've seen with the in-base expansions. I believe there's currently 2 of the finalists for the Team Liquid map contest, so there's 16 maps. I think 2 of them feature an in-base expansion. I think those are kind of lame. I just don't like it. Anything that promotes passivity, I just immediately get a knee-jerk reaction of not liking it. But Yeah, this one also just feels a little bit too laid back. Now, it's nice to have a bit of variety in a map pool, and I don't think you want to have the same type of map every single time. So maybe if we need a macro map, something a little bit more passive, then this is a good choice, but across the board, yeah, I'm not feeling it. For some reason, I've noticed these in like 7 different positions on the map. These look extremely flat. I don't really know what's going on with the texture, but something's very cursed. Look, this one is on top of the floor. These ones seem to be part of the floor somehow, and it's a bit... Maybe it's not entirely finished yet, who knows? It's a cool idea, but... Looks a little bit... Like, StarCraft 2 obviously is a game from 2010 at this point, so some of the graphics will be reasonably dated. I feel like overall, though, the game looks amazing. At least it's held up very nicely. Unit readability and all that is awesome, but this is the type of stuff that I look at and I'm like, yeah, it's 2010, all right. I just don't think it's a great texture. Ooh, a little bit of a miswalk here by ByuN. Loses 2 Hellions because of it, and this is looking like a much smoother game so far for Iba. He's got himself a Spore Crawler now to deal with that Banshee. He's gonna go for a 4th hatchery here as well on the right side of the map. ByuN already building up though. Barracks number 4 and 5 right now. We'll have to see whether or not he wants to go into an 8. I feel like we haven't seen a lot of 8 Rexes lately, but maybe that's something he will bring out. I don't mind it. 8 Rex can be extremely powerful. So it's basically, for all intents and purposes, a 3-base all-in for Terran, where rather than making the 4th command center, you spend those same minerals on 3 additional barracks. So normally you go 4th command center and then barracks 6, 7, and 8. You can skip the 4th CC and just go straight into the additional barracks, and it is a very powerful choice. It's one of those things that's most powerful when Zerg doesn't expect it. So when you've now, for example, shown the same 4cc build twice in a row, mixing it in is certainly an option. Double Evo Chamber coming up here for Iba. Prioritizing the Baneling speed. These Evos feel very late to me. They certainly could have been here a little while ago, and it's going to make any of those attacks right now for ByuN a little bit better, because he is going to be like a full minute ahead, maybe even like a minute and a half or so ahead of those Evo Chamber upgrades. Hydralisk Den as well, so it looks like this time around we're going to skip Ultras again. For good reason. As it's looking at the very least like a Hydraling Bane into potentially Lurkers a little bit later. Armory coming up at the correct timing. 2nd Factory coming up at the correct timing. We should see a 4th CC here in just a moment for ByuN. A couple of Zerglings for a counterattack, but they're not going to be able to achieve too much. Okay. So this will be when ByuN really starts building up some pressure. He's got those upgrades finishing up right around the same time, and it's a big power spike for the army. He needs to be careful, though, because his own upgrades are so far behind. He doesn't really have the numbers yet. Okay, additional Lings are popping out of their cocoons right now. A couple of the Marines a little bit ahead of the party. Good grab right here by ByuN. He backs up to the safety of the siege tanks, trying to protect them. Prevent them from falling. Nice targeting, although we are going to run out of space, but still, though. This is a really good engagement for ByuN. It is a cleanup for the Zerg, yes. But not a very easy one. And suddenly, with the reinforcing Marines showing up and those Queens so deep off creep, Iba is losing a lot of momentum. Oh, no. Yep. What was looking like a good game for Zerg. And this is the fragility of StarCraft. You make one mistake, boom. The top-level players will be all over it, and they will wipe you off the map. GG.